Hello YouTube. Today we're going to discuss the best way to do a starter job on a 5.7 liter Toyota V8 engine. I specifically have a 200 series Land Cruiser, but this should be applicable for a Tundra and a Sequoia as well. If you know this job, you know it's a pain in the ass. It can take a very long time. It can involve removing the exhaust manifold and or catalytic converter. It can involve transmission cooler lines, jacking the engine up, removing the starter solenoid. There's a lot of different ways and techniques and people how to do it. I have distilled that all down into this video right here that's going to summarize the best way to do this in the least amount of time with the least headache and possibility of getting yourself into a bind. If you want to see the full detailed video, my struggle session of how I arose at this conclusion, different techniques that I tried, some novel techniques, some tools and different things, look at the link down in the description. There's going to be a long, detailed video. It's like 35 minutes long showing the whole process and how I arrived at this point. So here's the summary. First of all, skip removing the exhaust manifold and the catalytic converter. That factory service manual will tell you to do that. Some people will tell you to do that. If you feel comfortable doing that, great. But you're going to have to replace, at the very least, the gaskets and bolts. You risk shearing a head off of a bolt. If you have no rust, maybe the risk is smaller. But you risk, stripping something out, shearing something out, just causing more problems, besides the fact that it's going to take you more time in general. This technique, this distillation of techniques that I'm going to show you here, I think is going to make the job take less time, and you're not going to need to mess with the exhaust manifold. So, starting off, obvious stuff. Disconnect the battery. Disconnect the 10mm bolt and pull the engine oil dipstick tube out. It's just a little O-ring at the bottom. I can figure out how to do that, but it's easy. Just pull it out of place. Obviously, take the wheel off. Then you got this stupid little splash guard on the inside of the wheel well. Just break the dumb little clips because they're impossible to get off in one piece. Just break them and pull off the splash guard. Now the first heat shield is pretty easy. 3 or 4 10mm bolts. Pull that thing out. It's a little tough to wrestle out of there, out of its house inside the engine bay there, but get that thing out. It's really not too difficult. Now we're getting down to the tough part. The little heat shield that attaches to the starter. You know the one. It's a bitch with the little fucking bolt at the top there. If you have some Harbor Freight Icon extra long double box end 90-tooth ratcheting wrenches with offset. It's a mouthful. It's a 5-piece kit they sell at Harbor Freight. That'll make the job a little bit easier because the extra long, you'll be able to get up to that bolt at the top there. Then the offset, it's going to have a little bit of almost like a little tiny socket at the end of the ratchet. A little socket that'll get over there and reach the bolt head. And then the 90-tooth, because you're barely going to have enough room to break that bolt free, the 90-tooth is going to help there. You could probably do it with a 72-tooth gear wrench or some just basic regular ratcheting wrench. Also, you're probably going to need a flex head. But anyway, that bolt isn't so difficult to take off. The other two are super easy to take off. The weird little heat shield with the reverse bolt that's coming back at you is kind of a pain in the ass, but not the end of the world. So get those 3 bolts out on that heat shield. Now you just got to get the heat shield out. This is honestly probably one of the hardest parts of the job, but what will make it easier is unbolting the starter in the back. So in the back of the starter, the little housing there, you got 2 14mm bolts. Take those out. Now you can wiggle the starter a little bit, wiggle the heat shield, wiggle the starter, and you can angle the heat shield down. Keep wiggling them and you can get it around, angle the heat shield down, and you'll be able to pull it out of the bottom. So unbolting that starter gives you a little bit of extra wiggle room to get the heat shield out. Now take out the other heat shield with the weird reverse bolt. It's not so difficult. Obviously remove the electrical connections on the back. Again, make sure the battery's disconnected. Cool. So now the starter's all disconnected. It's all free and clear. Now how do you get it out? Again, there's exhaust manifold. There's going out the bottom. And there's clipping off the transmission cooler lines. There's a lot of different methods. This is the best one. If you're looking at the wheel well, look to your 2 o'clock, you'll see a 19mm nut sitting atop an engine mount. Remove it. It's easier said than done. It's on there. It's the fuck on there. It's torqued down pretty hard. Again, in the link down in the description, I go into a lot more detail on all this stuff in the video. But effectively what I did is use what's called a grandpa trick with 2 wrenches kind of linked into one another, get some extra leverage, and get that thing off. If you want to watch the video in the description to see more detail, cool. But get that bolt off. That's going to allow you to jack the engine up. Now, I was apprehensive to do this because I'm not super vehicle mechanical type, and jacking an engine up inside a vehicle like this was a little apprehensive to do that. But trust me, it's not a big deal. It's easy to do. Once you get that bolt off, it's easy. It's going to save you a ton of time. That's the key to doing this job. Whoever figured this out online, all praises be to you, sir. You're a genius. This method is going to save a ton of time on this whole job. So, take the 19mm nut off, put a 2x4 or some piece of wood underneath your oil pan to protect it, and then jack it up by the oil pan. If you're worried about the oil pan gasket, you can figure out another way to do it. I'm not worried about the oil pan gasket. It's fine. But if you are, figure out another way to jack the engine up a couple inches. Now, that's going to give you plenty of room to get the starter out. You're still going to have to wiggle it and finagle it and kind of move it down and all this stuff. But at that point, it'll be pretty easy to get the starter out with the solenoid in place. Some people say remove the starter solenoid, the little electrical mechanism at the top, to make it easier to get the whole thing out. You won't need to do that if you do this method, jacking the engine up, which is part of why it's so genius. Take the old starter out and put the new starter in should be even easier because the new starter, at least on the Land Cruiser, is a little bit smaller than the old starter. So even easier, get that thing in, hook up the electrical connections, get it bolted back into place. Cool. Now you just got to put that stupid little fucking heat shield back on. The first 2 bolts, again, are easy. They're easy. Just access them right from the front or the side or whatever. It's that 3rd fucking bolt at the top that is going to be the hardest part of this job by far. So here's what I recommend. Ignore it. Just forget about it. You don't need to put it in. Oh, but it's going to rattle. It's going to be rattling and making a bunch of noise. No, it's not. Trust me. Look at the video down in the link if you don't believe me here, and go to the last few minutes of the video. I test this. I just put 2 bolts on that heat shield, start up the vehicle. Not only do you not hear anything inside, you don't hear anything outside. You go right down there in the wheel well, and you can see the video in the wheel well with all the other heat shields and splash guards and stuff removed. Nothing. No vibration, no rattling. It's fine. It'll be fine. So I'd recommend save yourself the frustration, save yourself the weeks and months that it's going to shave off of your life by the pure stress of putting that fucking bolt in at the top there, and just skip it. Just ignore it. If you're really, really worried about it, then you're going to have to get that thing in, and God save your soul, because it's a pain in the fucking ass, and good luck with that. But I would recommend just skipping it. You don't need it. It's not going to hurt anything at all. So then just obviously start putting everything back into place. The little reverse bolt is a pain in the ass, but it's not super, super difficult. Again, there's more details on this stuff down in the description. Put the engine mount back on. Don't forget that. Put the other heat shield back on. That's pretty easy. The very last splash guard, I can't find the weird little white clips that are supposed to go onto that thing. Can't find the part number anywhere. I scoured the internet and Toyota parts sites. If anybody knows the part number to those weird little clips on that last splash guard, please leave it down in the description. I'll pin your comment to the top. I just used whatever clips I had. I have plenty of Toyota clips, and I've used some that work just fine, and that was it. That's it. That's the job. If you do it that way, you could probably get it down to 3 to 4-ish hours, depending on how mechanically skilled you are. Maybe a little bit less if you're really good, maybe a little bit more if you're not so good, but probably in that 3 to 4 hour ballpark, which is going to be easier than the whole removing the exhaust manifold and the catalytic converter and replacing all the gaskets and bolts and all that crap. It's going to save you time doing it this way, especially jacking the engine up and forgetting that 3rd bolt at the top there. Again, trust me, you don't need it. So that's that. That's the summary. If you want to watch the full video where I detail how to do all this stuff and my struggle session and thought process behind everything and a lot of rambling trying to figure this out and kind of go through it, click the video down below. Otherwise, good luck with the job. May God have mercy on your soul. Aloha.